Hello and welcome to this Tattersalls NH Cheltenham Festival preview show where myself, Richard Pugh, Jamie Codd and Robbie Power are going to be talking all things Cheltenham Festival. We're going to be discussing the big races over the 4 days, the big names, we have some special guests and most importantly, we're going to be pointing you in the direction of a few winners.
On fire, ladies, out in front, and he's going to win at the festival for the third time. The Ryanair goes to On Fire then. Stay away, Faye. He's all out. Sanders again is getting closer, but it's Stay Away Faye who wins a dramatic Albert Barlett. And it's Constitution Hill, one of the hurdling greats. Ease close home. Constitution Hill, simply breathtaking, wins the champion hurdle in a rout. Nothing was a match today for Energamine. He's absolutely bolted up in the Spitway Champion Chase. As they race up towards the line, Honeysuckle is responding to the calls of Rachel Blackmore and she'll end with a victory. Honeysuckle has done it.
Well, doesn't that just set the scene beautifully? And as I said, I am joined by an esteemed panel here, two ex-jockeys and a man in Richard Pugh who what he doesn't know about National Hunt racing isn't worth knowing. And I wasn't even paid to say that, Richard. How are you?
Great, Vanessa, thank you. Looking forward to the evening.
It's going to be great.
It is. If you're going to be in that form and compliment us like that all night, we'll all get on.
We'll fly along. Boys, Robbie Power, you brought your Cheltenham Gold Cup with you. Just to remind us that you have ridden a winner of the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
It's 7 years ago now, so people forget very quickly. So yeah, no, it's fantastic. We've had some great days in Cheltenham. Well, I had one good year. It was great, something you never forget.
Oh, I can believe it. I mean, watching back some of those replays, Jamie, it really does get you in the mood for the big week. I know we build up to it every year and everyone sort of gets a bit cross with the hype, but actually right now with 2 weeks to go, it's what it's all about. This is what we're here for.
Oh yeah, look, it's the whole year, no matter what anybody says, the whole year, you know, it's momentum towards Cheltenham and yeah, like really looking forward to it. You know, it's 2 weeks now and yeah, it's going to be class.
2 week countdown is on. Obviously, we are off the back of some pretty shocking news in regards to Constitution Hill, the champion hurdle. We'll be getting to that in due course, guys. But let's kick on. Day one, race one, is of course the Supreme Novices. And this is a race that's had some flip-flopping favourites all season long. At the moment, your betting is the likes of Ballymore, Tullyhill and Mystical Power, all up at the top of the betting for, of course, that man, Willie Mullins. He'll be having a few mentions on this show. You've got Firefox in there, Jericho de Repene and others. But that first horse I mentioned, Ballymore, has two options, the Supreme or the Bearing Bingham, up in trip, of course. And the first of our special guest tonight is the man who purchased Ballymore in his early days, the legend that is Ian Ferguson. Ian, it's great that you could join us today for this, what is going to be a relatively brief chat, so don't worry too much about the length of this. But just very briefly, for anybody who doesn't know your past and your history, can you just summarise your background, not only in racing, but your relationship with Ronnie Bartlett as well?
As far as Ronnie Bartlett's concerned, we go back a long way. I sold him his first horse. He actually won a pointy point on himself, and he rode him in a hunter chase in Cheltenham, and they completed the course. I'll not say they won or anything like it, but they got round, put it that way. And since then, that must be 30 odd years ago now. And since then, we have been good friends, and I don't think he goes past me to try to buy a horse, or he uses me to source horses for him, put it that way.
Okay, well, hang on, we've just got to go back to quite a crucial point then. What sort of jockey was Ronnie Bartlett in the saddle? Come on, give us the inside track here.
Well, he wasn't Derek O'Connor.
I mean, not many people are, so that's a fair enough comment. You've been kind to your long-standing friend there.
He was a good hunting jockey. He was a good hunting jockey. He likes hunting a lot. He's a good rider over country, so he is. Put it that way.
read into that what you will, viewers out there. Tell me this then, in terms of your successes together on the track, back when you were training, of course, and at Cheltenham too, you must have had some real high days together.
Yeah, we've had lots of fun. We had lots of point-to-point winners together. We had a good horse, Joe Blake, that went nearly the whole way, and he won he won at Punchestown, he won at Stratford, he won at Ferryhouse, Gorn Park, he won all the big hunter chases except the one in Cheltenham. And Zemski came along after that, and he won the Fox Hunters for us in Cheltenham. And after that, I was sort of downsizing in this training thing and more sourcing horses for people, and started to buy foals for other people, and that's where it's continued since.
We will get on to talking about the present and, of course, Ballyburn and Banbridge, but just for a moment, indulge me, because when Zemski won the Fox Hunters, what was that day like for you? To do that upsides one of your great friends, somebody you had such a good relationship with, to provide him with that winner, and the whole team around you as well. What was that day like? Do you have sort of, I mean, obviously you have fond memories, but any reflections for us?
It was a brilliant day for both of us. Most of my horses were always sold on, so I didn't have many opportunities to have a crack at those type of races. I was a producer of pointy-pointers and sell them on, and Ronnie was about the only person that did keep horses with me, you know, to have a go at these things. So obviously to win that was a great delight for both of us. It was like me winning the Gold Cup. It was like the Gold Cup of my sort of standard of horses, and it was brilliant to say the least. Yeah, it was very good. Yeah.
Magic, yeah, I'm sure. As I said, let's focus on the present now, and of course 2 big talking horses for you and Ronnie going into this year's Cheltenham Festival are Ballyburn and Banbridge. We'll start with Ballyburn, because what a revelation he's been. Just take us back to purchasing him yourself. Where was that? What did you pay for him? And crucially, what did you like about him, Ian?
Well, first saw him, Wilson Dennison and I, who's a great supporter of mine, we tour around stud farms every year in Ireland. We go off on a kind of a journey. We do Wexford and Waterford and wherever else, Cork and wherever. We have certain farms that we go to every year that have been lucky for us through the years. And Wilson likes to have a deal at home with stud owners. We weren't able to buy Ballyburn at home. The simple fact was the McCarthy's, Bobby and Robert, had him entered for the Tattersalls sale, and they didn't want to disappoint Tattersalls by taking him out of the sale at that late date. So we followed him through to Tattersalls, and we bought him and another horse that we would like to have bought at home that day, Kerry Hill. They both were in the same field together at Bobby's whenever we saw them. And Kerry Hill has gone on to win a graded race there recently for Ruth Jefferson. And we bought them, the 2 of them, in the ring that day off McCarthy's, the Beaches stud. Yeah.
Wow, what a story. And so fascinating that, you know, you liked him from the very off, and, you know, were so keen to purchase him even then. In terms of his career progression and what he's done on the track, he doesn't have necessarily the most, I suppose, early on in his career, in his bumper days, and then in the first couple of hurdle runs, you know, they put him in pretty shallow waters, and then he sort of jumped up to that grade 1 level. Why was it that he's taken that career path, that sort of softly approach?
Well, I think that's partly down to Ronnie Bartlett. He doesn't like to overface his horses, and it was his recommendation that Willie didn't take him to the champion bumper in Cheltenham last year. Right. Ronnie, in the past, we have had horses in the past that looked good, went to Cheltenham, ran credibly in the champion bumper, but didn't train on after it. And Ronnie was pretty adamant whenever David Vanessa came onto the scene to share the horse with Ronnie. Ronnie made that statement. The fact, he said, David, the only one thing I want to stipulate is I don't want to be at Cheltenham in his first season.
Wow, okay, that is interesting. So that came from Ronnie. And then... Yeah. Well, we have to sort of get into the nitty-gritty with him, because obviously we've got this debate over him being a 2-miler or a 2.5-miler at this point in his career, whether he goes to the Supreme or the Baring Bingham. From your point of view and your knowledge of the horse, what do you think he's going to be best suited to?
Well, the day I saw him win his pointy-point, he obviously looked like a staying chaser, but it was the speed he did show in the pointy-point. There was a horse fell in front of him at the second last, I thought his chance had completely gone. Like, he must have been 15 lengths off the other two leaders going to the last fence. And he just seemed to come and pick them up for fun, which was obviously a sign that this fella's got a bit of an engine. And I recommended him to Ronnie. Wilson Dennison owned him at that time. I recommended him to Ronnie then. There was a bit of hiccups went on before Wilson and Ronnie were able to come to an arrangement about a price. And they're both hardened businessmen, both used to a deal, and that was it. But they got it ironed out anyway. The horse belonged to Ronnie, and David Vanessa had asked Ronnie the previous year to find a horse that he could join up with him in partnership. So Ronnie offered him the share in the horse at that time. But the only input he had to it was that, and he stipulated at the time he asked Ronnie, was that the horse went to Willie Mullins to be trained. He had an ambition to have a horse with Willie, and that was that. So, but as I say, the day he won his pointy point, he looked a good horse. And his bumpers, all right, he runs a bit funny with his head down. You would think he was pulling the arms out of you, but as Paul Townend rightly says, his bark's worse than his bite. For it's his head carriage. He just likes to carry his head low. He's not really pulling your arms out at that stage. But Patrick also made the statement, it wasn't until you got after him that you really found what was under the bonnet in his bumper races. And he seems to be more professional and more happy over hurdles. I think he likes jumping, and so far so good. So far so good.
Ian, you have answered that beautifully, but you've skillfully managed to dodge the question of 2 miles or 2.5 miles. But I'll allow you that pass because you're kind enough to come on this show for us. I will allow that for you. We will wait and see when the decision is made, and it may well be Sunday morning, pretty much, that we will know our fate with Ballyburn. Very much looking forward to seeing him, and it moves us nicely on to Banbridge, who's a horse I am so fond of, and of course so looking forward to seeing him in the Ryanair. And again, just take us back to the start with Banbridge, because he's followed a similar path to that of Ballyburn in terms of the people involved with him the whole way through, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I bought him off the late Kieran Lennon as a yearling in Tattersalls, and he went to Wilson Dennison's farm after spending a winter with my son Paul at his yard. And Wilson campaigned him as a 4-year-old. I watched him run. It was the COVID year. He ran in 2/3 pointy points, and I thought he was a shade unlucky in them. And it just happened to Ronnie said to me, have you seen anything nice this year? I said, I saw one horse that I bought previously with Wilson, and I said, I think there's a future with him. He looks a nice horse for the future. And that was that.
Yeah, and what a time of it he's had on the track, really. I mean, he's not had loads of racing. He's still a relatively, he's not an old horse anyway. And yet it feels like Banbridge has been around for such a long time in such a way. And I was looking at his race records. He's 9 from 16. He's 4 from 6 over fences. And crucially, he's 2 from 2 at Cheltenham. And that track form is what we're all latching onto here now for the Ryanair, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was especially good round Kempton the last day, for Kempton's a very fast track. And when he was able to come and pick up Nichols's horse that day, I thought it was a bloody good performance. And, I think if the ground, he's a bit ground dependent, that's all. Or I don't think it bothers Ballyburn what kind of ground it is other than major fast. Obviously, I don't think Willie would ever run him on that. I think Banbridge definitely needs a decent surface to show his best off. Joseph ran him once in a bumper, and he couldn't even walk in the bumper. He said he was, pathetic that day. But ground that he likes, he seems to be pretty professional on it now. So he does.
I mean, look, if you're going to have a horse that's a little bit ground dependent, you don't mind it being spring ground, given that he can have a go at Cheltenham, Aintree and Punchestown, do you?
No, well, Ronnie has already said they travelled him to Cheltenham last year. The same will apply this year, unless it's shown to be bog soft before they leave Ireland. But if there's any chance of good ground, he will travel, and the decision will be made basically on the day. He has still got Aintree, Ferryhouse, Punchestown coming up after that, and hopefully if the ground didn't come right at Cheltenham, he would take in some of those festivals.
Yeah, actually, it reminds me of obviously 12 months ago when they did take him out because of, as you say, the softer ground. And it takes brave connections, a brave owner and a brave trainer to make that call when a race is winnable, when you're there for it, when you stood at the track. But to make that call and then be rewarded later with obviously the Aintree success, that must feel really good, I guess, for you guys.
Well, Ronnie and I have made lots of mistakes in his life, and I think we've both learned from them. And Ronnie doesn't put pressure on trainers at all. And usually he was quite happy to Joseph to make the call. And when he made the call, he was quite happy with that. And the same will apply this year.
Yeah, fingers crossed we get a good ground. Good to soft ground, Cheltenham will suit everyone. No excuse ground, as I like to call it. You've been very generous with your time, so we will wrap up. But any other horses for our viewers out there to watch out for over the coming, not necessarily at Cheltenham, but maybe in the spring, or anything nice that you've got up your sleeve that you'd like to mention for us, Ian?
Well, Willie runs another horse that came through the Denison Academy, Tully Hill. Wilson had him, and he won his point-to-point with him, and he obviously goes for the Supreme. It's the only entry he has, so it'll be interesting for him too. I don't want to see the two of them running in the one race. If for any chance Tully Hill didn't go and they switched Ballyburn to that, well, I would accept that, but I don't want to see the two of them taking each other on personally. So
Okay, fascinating then. Hopefully for your sake they will be kept separate in that case. Look, as I say, you've been so generous with your time, Ian. Good luck with these horses for not only Cheltenham but of course the spring festivals and beyond. And thank you so much for your time today. It's been much appreciated.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right, well, it was great to hear from Ian Ferguson there. Some real interesting insights to those horses, obviously in their early days as much as anything. But boys, I think crucially there, the nugget he gave away, if you were really listening, which I know all three of you were, Jamie Codd, you included, is, I pushed him there for an answer on Ballyburn 2 miles or 2.5, and he wasn't going to give anything away until right at the end when he mentions Tully Hill going for the Supreme and Ballyburn would have to switch if he was to go to the Supreme, indicating that surely the 2.5 miles is where he's going. Am I right, Robbie?
No, you're not.
Okay, great, good start. Here we go. Tell me why I'm not.
Well, Tully Hill is owned by Cheveley Park and Ballyburn's owned by Ronnie Bartlett, as we know, and Willie will go where he wants to go with the two horses, and that's simple as that. I read in the paper today where Cheltenham are now betting soft ground to start the meeting, and I think Ballyburn is an exceptional racehorse. What he did in Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, we know how good Slade Steele is, and he proved on the day how good he was, pulling 7 legs clear of King of Kingsfield, and Absurd was back and forth, two horses who were favourites for 2 handicaps in Cheltenham.
Wow.
And Ballyburn has quickened away from him. He's a horse with everything. He's stamina, but he's a lot of speed as well. And if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would say Ballyburn will run in the Supreme if the ground is going to be soft.
Okay, and he's your selection for the race then, as we
I think whichever novice hurdle Ballyburn runs in, he'll win. He's an exceptional racehorse, and I think he'll win either the 2 or 2.5 one.
Wow, confident shout to start, Richard. Do you agree with that statement? Do you expect
100%.
to see him there? Oh, you do?
Wherever he goes, he wins. I saw him, actually, he mentioned the point that he ran in, and he shouldn't have won. He was hampered, he was brought off the track, the race was gone on him, and it was done for. And good horses always find a way to win, and he did. So I think Willie has the whip hand here. He decides which race he wants to win with Ballyburn, and he covers his options from there. I'd worry about Tully Hill's jumping in a Supreme Novice. I saw him point to point as well, and he went down to the last and he wasn't sure, and he paddled out through it, and he's a bit deliberate over his hurdles, so I'm not sure Tully Hill is the answer even if Ballyburn doesn't go. He's a very talented horse and he pushed a dream to share, but Ballyburn is so obvious that we can't keep leaning on him. So maybe for an each way bet, tell her the name, who was a graduate of last year's Cheltenham Festival sale. Johnny Berry had him. He won at Barras House, which is on next Sunday, 12 months ago, and now he jumps into a Supreme Novice from the festival sale. So 25 to 1, a bit of each way value, and I'd love to see Asian Master run a big race for Tony Costello and young Tom Costello, grandson of the great Tom Costello, who won so many Gold Cups. He's a real amateur. He's about 6'4". His weight will keep right for as long as it does. 33 to 1 each way. That's my heart bet. My head bet is tell her the name, but you're right, Ballyburn wins.
Okay. Jamie Codd, do you have anything else to add into the Supreme conundrum?
Not really. I think Willie Mullins will make his mind up late. I don't know, Puppy, you think ground, it will be soft. Cheltenham dries so quick. It's probably the most well-drained track in England and Ireland. So if it was soft on the Saturday, I could see it being good ground on the Tuesday easily. And I think that'll depend if the ground is good. If it's good healing, I think he'll go for the longer trip. And I think if it's on the soft side, he will stay over the 2 mile Ballyburn. The horse I like, Firefox, you know, he was top lot here in a Derby sale. You know, when you're selling stores, you know, for a top lot to go on and be a good racehorse, and that's what we got in Firefox. So I'd love to see him. You know, he beat him before, albeit Ballyburn now probably needed a run. Firefox had a run under his belt, but you know, he's a talented horse, and I think he could run a big race. Gordon seems to think he has him fairly well. He thinks that Nace in the Lawlers, he wasn't 100%, so I'd love to see Firefox in a race in the spring.
Okay, we've had a few names into the mix then for the Supreme. I like that, variety to start. Viewers out there, do get involved. We want to hear from you in regards to what you fancy for these races, who you agree with, who you don't agree with. Do get involved. Do it via Facebook and Twitter, or now obviously known as X. Comment, get involved, and at the end of the show, we'll be answering some of your questions. So if you have any questions for the boys, then send them in, and we'll hopefully get through a few of those questions towards the end of the show. Let's kick on, guys. Arkle time. Now, this is a conundrum for me, because for me, the race totally revolves around, obviously, the long-time anti-post favourite, Supreme winner in Marine Nationale, who's now a bigger price than he's really ever been for this race, given his defeat when we saw him at the DRF, by Il Était Temps, who I believe is kind of a bit pushed aside because of the hype around Marine Nationale. Jamie, I will start with you here. Are you happy just to draw a line through Marine Nationale's defeat at Leopardstown?
Yeah, I think so. Like, you can forgive a horse. You can definitely forgive a horse a bad run. Ground is a lot different this year compared to last year when he was, say, when he won as a novice in Fairyhouse. It was goodish ground, and then he came on to Cheltenham. It was good ground. So if the ground stays nice, he definitely is good enough. I suppose his, you know, I think his jumping will be fine. I thought he jumped okay in Leopardstown out of softer ground than ideal. Like, he only has about 10 lengths to make up in Leopardstown, so if it's not a big thing. Found a 50 for me is probably the most solid horse that is in the market at the minute. Every day he's ran this year, it's just been very, very consistent. So for me, I think he probably sets the standard, even though he was beat by Il Était Temps. So for me, Found a 50 is probably your safest bet.
Bit of value and safety, I suppose. Yeah. I can see that angle, because there are so many questions, Robbie, about the horses in behind the sort of the top two in the market, I guess. When you get down to likes of In the Pocket, Facile Vega, we're expecting for him to potentially step up in trip, and the wheels have come off him this season. We do get insight coming up, by the way, from Patrick Mullins as well on that, so stay tuned. But it's a wide open market if Marine Nationale doesn't show up, which he didn't when we last saw him.
Even if he does show up, he won't win. He doesn't jump well enough.
Bloody hell, you're really full of it today.
He's had a wind operation. He won a very ordinary beginner's chase in Leopardstown at Christmas. I don't think he ran that much worse on the bare form, but when he won his beginner's chase to the Grade 1, that was a big step up. He didn't jump well enough. He didn't travel well enough. Yes, he's a better horse on better ground, but I don't think he's going to be a better chaser than he was a hurdler. I think he's going to be a worse chaser than he was a hurdler. So for me, I think Quilixius each way. He's a Triumph Hurdle winner. Good run the last day in Nace when he won impressively. We kind of had to put my hands up and take a bit of blame for this as my race planning role with Henry, but I was the one that suggested he should run over 3 miles. So we ran him over 3 miles in Punchestown, and that fairly backfired. So
consider this Robbie Power eating some humble pie as he tips him up for an Arkle. Yeah. I love that.
So he was.
You get it wrong.
Yeah.
This is the biggest news out of this preview.
So
this is live. This is going out. We can't edit this
well,
out. You know that?
I remember when Tully Hill won in ran his maiden hurdle, in Punchestown over 2.6, and I walked down and he made a bad mistake at the third last, and I said to Willie, he got a fright after he made the mistake, and he said, I don't know what David Casey was doing running over 2.6. So Henry was kind of saying the same when I ran Calix's asked to run Calix's over 3 miles. What were you doing running him over 3 miles? So look, we were back in trip in Punchestown or in Naas, and he was very, very good. So he's a Triumph Hurdle winner, good course form. He jumps really, really well. So I think around 14 to 1, he's a great each way chance in the race. It's a wide open Arkle.
Yeah,
it's wide
really
open
is.
as I've seen for a long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I fear there's no real superstar in there, given what you've just said about Marine Nationale. But let's focus on the positives. Who would you like to throw into the mix, Richard?
Yeah, I'd be with Jamie. I think found a 50.
Okay.
He'd only jumped 5. If you look back to Downroy, he actually jumped 5 fences. I always agree with Jamie. By
Breaking
the way, it'd be
news.
quite boring for 2 hours. Whatever Jamie says, I just tend to follow. He only jumped 5 fences in Downroy, or 6 fences with the Sun when he met I Am Maximus in his grade 1. He'd only had 4 or 5 fences jumped, so he was a novice under all codes, meeting an Irish national winner. So they couldn't have been further apart in terms of experience, so I'd allow him that. I know Ilate Tom beat him, but I just think up the hill in Cheltenham he'll hit the line harder. Tom Fahey, who would have shod many of probably Jesse's, many of your Cheltenham winners, I'd say, Braid found a 50, so it'd be a lovely result for him. He went through one of our Cheltenham sales. I don't know, Marine National, I thought he was foot perfect in his beginner's chase.
He's jumped like a 2-miler. He's too deliberate through the air.
Yeah,
his jumping was fine, like he was getting from A to B, but he's not quick. 2-mile chasers have to be rapid.
I thought when he was in front he was just having a look, but when he went down to the ditch the third last and he needed one, he was at it. Anyway, look, I agree. I think Michael O'Sullivan knew from too far out he was in trouble. He sat on him, he never moved. It was a bit like Paul and Gaelic Warrior. He knew he was hanging on to nothing, so we'll chance found a 50. Me and Jamie always stay together.
Okay.
I felt as well with Marine Nationale, you said he doesn't jump quick enough on the ground. The ground in Leopardstown the second day was the old ground, rolled in, tacky, it was deep, whereas when he ran at Leopardstown at Christmas it was fresh track, nice ground. Even though it was soft, it was still fresh soft, whereas at the Dublin Racing Festival for me it was rotten ground, and I thought he jumped like big fences around Leopardstown. I thought he jumped well enough. I think he'll be a lot slicker on the day. You cannot write that horse, you can't write him off after one ordinary run, but for me found 50.
I'm writing them off anyway.
Some difference of opinions. That's what we have you on the panel for. I love it. Love to see it. Let's move on. Champion hurdle time. Big shake-up, guys, today. Obviously, Constitution Hill works badly. Market goes mental. Now, Market's suspended for quite some time, and now we don't even know if he's going to run. Very stressful, but won't be if you're a state man backer, of course. And he's taking on the likes of, in behind him, really, the market is pretty weak. You've got the likes of Irish Point priced up, Vauban, Not So Sleepy, Lucia in there, Zarek the Brave as well, all bigger prices. So if Constitution Hill doesn't show up here, or if he's had a problem, in fact, Robbie, I'll start with you because you're in the yards all the time. You know how this works. The news that we've had on Constitution Hill, in your opinion right now, how likely is it that we will see him in a champion hurdle?
It all depends on the scope. And Nicky Henderson said today he had a sample. He was heading off to the vets to get tested, so it all depends on how much mucus is in his lungs. It could clear up in 3 or 4 days, 4 or 5 days, but it could linger on for a bit longer. I suppose the big thing is it's not the first bad scope that he's had this year. He missed the international hurdle in Cheltenham because of a bad scope, so maybe he's been a horse that's been hard to train this year for some reason or another. I wasn't blown away by him in Kempton at Christmas. I just thought he went through the motions. He didn't do anything more than or better than what Stateman has done all this season. And even before the bit of work this morning, I was fancying Stateman, not to necessarily beat him, but to give him a big run for it, because I think Stateman's improved. I know Paul Townend felt last year in Cheltenham the Stateman didn't turn up. He knew after jumping 2 hurdles he was beaten. So I think he's a better, stronger horse this year. But it's going to be a challenge, and there's no better man than Nicky Henderson to get him back in the space of exactly 2 weeks.
I know.
To Cheltenham, and if anyone can do it, Nicky can do it.
Is there anyone else you'd want to mention for the champion hurdle away from those top 2? Anything that you think?
No. I think if Constitution Hill doesn't turn up, you could have Irish Point run, and he'd have an each way chance in the race. I know Gordon's quite keen to split him and Pugh up.
Of course, yeah.
So he'd like to go to the champion hurdle if the ground was on the soft side with Irish Point. So he's a possibility if Constitution didn't make it.
look, he's a horse who's done very little wrong this season, really.
He's won over 2 and 3 miles,
Yeah.
so he's a very good horse.
Okay, Richard, how are you viewing the Champion Hurdle market as we look at it right now?
I fancied Stateman to beat Constitution Hill anyway, as well. I just his last run of last season, he beat Charge at 3 lengths and he didn't blow him away. And Charge was beaten either side of it. So his one wow run last season was beating Stateman, who we hear wasn't right. And Stateman is just, he's the perfect racehorse. It doesn't matter how you ride him, it doesn't matter how you present, he just delivers. Anyway, it's been quite obvious now at this stage. We have to galvanise our inner kicking king or binocular to believe in Constitution Hill now, because they were both out until they were back in again, and they did deliver. And if anyone can do it, Nicky can do it. I think Zarek the Brave or Pied Piper for me each way, 25 to 1, 33 to 1. That's where I would be diverting my fiver each way.
Jamie, what's the view on the Champion Hurdle for you?
Look at it. I disagree with the lads, obviously. I think Constitution Hill is just a monster. Stateman, rightly or wrongly, if he wasn't, I don't think he's improved. I think he's grand, but Constitution Hill, the way he won last year, what he does in every race, I think he's just a fantastic racehorse, and I just love to see him back and put up another good performance and win another Champion Hurdle. I love seeing good horses. He's a very, very good horse, and I'd love to see him win it again.
Yeah, on those sparkling days, he's magic. The way he hurdles, everything about him. But obviously his participation is currently in doubt, and the horse that might be able to pick up the pieces is, of course, Stateman, trained by Willie Mullins, who has a whole raft, a whole boat full of horses going to the Cheltenham Festival. So we had to get the insight from someone in the Mullins team. So we've made the call to Patrick Mullins, and he starts off by talking to us about the Champion Hurdle, but then we move on to all topics. So let's hand over to Patrick, who I spoke to earlier. Patrick, it's great that you could join us. Thank you very much for your time. And of course, we're not going to keep you too long, because if we were to talk about all the horses Willie Mullins is running at the Cheltenham Festival, we'll be here all night, and nobody needs that. So this is going to be quick fire and to the point. And we're going to start, Patrick, no niceties, thank you very much. We're just going to start straight in with the Champion Hurdle chat, because of course, everything is up in the air. Constitution Hill, will he run, won't he run? Disaster for the race, but as a Stateman fan yourself, you probably don't see it too much of a disaster.
Yeah, look, if it is only a bad scope, 2 weeks is plenty of time to get over it for Constitution Hill. He'll be hard fit, he'll just need to be freshened up. But Stateman's in fantastic form at home, and if Constitution Hill isn't on his A game, then that gives us a superb chance.
It does indeed. Now I've got to ask, because everyone's asking, is there any chance that if Constitution Hill wasn't there, that Lossiemouth might be there, or is that far-fetched?
Look, I suppose she's still in the race and she's left in it for a reason, but I would imagine the Mare's Hurdle looks like her best chance of winning a race. Stateman is still a hugely formidable opponent for a 5-year-old mare, and I think, like Honeysuckle and Annie Power, both went for the Mare's Hurdle before going for the Champion, and I think that looks like a well-trodden path.
Fair, we like that. Just one last question on Stateman himself. You know, we've seen the issues Constitution Hill has had, and part of being a great racehorse is being able to take your racing, take your training, eat up every night, and that's what Stateman does. And I think you must feel that he probably doesn't really get the recognition he deserves at this point of his career.
Well, look, he's not flashy. He just gets the job done. Like I said, he's like Roy Keane's postman. He just turns up and goes home. But have no doubt, this fella could be as good a hurdler as we've had. I think he's got huge ability, and he definitely is well up to winning a Champion Hurdle. And he's just unfortunate to be in Constitution Hill's era.
He is indeed, and we will see how that race and that market pans out in the next couple of weeks. Of course, we all hope Constitution Hill will be there to make it such a brilliant race. Let's move on and talk about a couple of the other headline acts. We might as well bounce straight across the Galloping de Champs. Obviously, incredible in the race in the Gold Cup 12 months ago, and his latest 2 performances have been sparkling, specifically that Christmas one. I can't get out of my head, Patrick, the way in which he galloped through the line that day. I just thought that was him at his very best. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, look, that was jaw-dropping, and to be honest, it was a bit unexpected. You know, his work before Christmas hadn't been mind-blowing, but his performance certainly was. And I think, like himself and Stateman, they've both danced every dance. They've turned up in the 3 Grade 1s pre-Cheltenham. They're going to go to Cheltenham, they go to Punchestown. As you said, the great horses are fit, hale and hearty, and touch wood, they can continue the way their season's been so far.
In terms of galloping, though, now going to the Gold Cup, do you believe he is a better horse with these more positive tactics than he was 12 months ago, as maybe not a fully furnished horse in terms of his sort of mental ability to settle, etc., in a race?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Is he a better horse? I don't know. I think his Christmas performance was probably his career best, so you could argue that. Last year, we were thinking the trip was going to be a bit of a question mark. This year, it's not. I think it'll be much easier for Paul Townend to ride a race. He can just keep things simple. And, being able to ride a horse in that manner might mean the final performance is better.
Okay, let's move on at pace then. We will do some novice hurdlers, Patrick, because this has so many of us scrambled. Tully Hill looks like the obvious starting point in the Supreme. Tell me, how much has this horse surprised you this season, Tully Hill?
The biggest surprise from him was how far he got beaten the first time. Look, in Punchestown last year, we decided to run Tully Hill in the champion bumper and Ballyburn in the winner's bumper. Tully Hill would be a better workhorse at home. So we've always held him in the highest regard. What I would say is Tully Hill is a horse that gives everything very much on the bridle, whereas Ballyburn, you have to wind him up. So they are different types of horses. His jumping hasn't been fantastic. He has his own way of doing it. It's improving, but it's still far from slick. So the engine is without doubt there, but the jumping does need to continue to improve to win a Supreme Novices.
How do you see the Supreme market, Patrick? Just on a wider note, never mind your horses alone, obviously Mystical Powers in there, Ballyburn, the conversation about him and the 2.5 miles, etc., etc. But in terms of the race itself, the Supreme, it's had flip-flopping favourites all season long. There's no horse that's kind of been at the top of the market throughout. Do you think that's because it's wide open because there's a good level of horse, or is it a substandard Supreme?
Well, look, with a Dream to Share not having gone hurdling, that obviously blew it wide open. And then obviously Tully Hill blotted his copybook, and Ballyburn looked like he was going to be a 2.5, and now maybe it's going to be a 2-miler. So I don't think it's below par. I think there's 3 or 4 top quality horses at the head of the affair, and I'd expect them all to make their mark in open company next year. Okay,
so you think it's a decent crop then? We'll take that. Mystical Power, like where does he slot in against the Tully Hill, for example?
Very difficult horse to size up. His work at home would have been very average. We didn't run him last spring. We started off in Ballymore. He won, but didn't win particularly well. He then went hurdling at the Galway Festival, where he took us by surprise with how well he won. We then gave him a break to give him an order to give him a chance to be a Cheltenham horse. His work before the Moscow Flyer was fine. He was supposed to run in the Lauders, but it was called off with the fog, so he got rerouted. And what he did in the Moscow Flyer took us all by surprise. Jockey, trainer, owner, everyone, I think. So we don't know where the bottom of him is. His dam, Annie Power, is quite similar as well. She only fell in her first bumper when I won on her for Jim Bulger and continued to improve. So, look, we don't know. I mean, we know as much as anyone else because his performances on the track are completely different than what he does at home.
I love that. I love that sort of surprise angle. Let's move on, though. Let's move on. Let's do a few chasers. I'm actually bypassing the Albert Bartlett division because reading Tommy wrong, I put the top of the market and it's just a confusing race and there's some other big names to talk about. Ilete Tomps in the Arkle. Are we underestimating this horse? I feel like we don't give him the credit he really deserves.
Yeah, I think we've all been guilty of it, ourselves included, really. Look, as a hurdler, Fassa Vega was a much superior hurdler, but it looks like Ilete Tomps is better over fences, even though to look at him you wouldn't. He's quite small, he's quite narrow, he's not particularly long, but he's obviously got the heart and bottle for it. I wouldn't mind that he got beaten in the Triumph because he was far too keen, and I draw a line through his Supreme Novice run. If you watch it, he misses the 4th last hurdle, and then Danny has to kind of rush him up around the outside and gets racing quite early. It was a messy race. It didn't go to plan with him. It was a big field. I think smaller field, over fences in the Arkle, and that's going to see improvement from him. And put it this way, with Marine Nationale, a question mark, and a question mark about a lot of the top horses. he's one who is solid every time.
Yeah, I like the consistency angle with him. We should just mention him, Facile Vega, like any chance of keeping, like getting the wheels back on him this season, really. I feel like so much has gone wrong for him. Are we even likely to see him at Cheltenham at this point?
Oh yeah, I think we've seen him at Cheltenham all right. He's been first and second at the last two festivals. His 3 runs, his jumping hasn't been slick for a 2-miler. His dam was obviously a 2.5 and a 3-miler, so she won 4 stairs hurdles at Punchdown. I think stepping up in trip will unlock his potential. I think it'll give his jumping a chance to be more effective, and I definitely wouldn't be writing him off.
Okay, not writing him off. We will take that on board. Now, I am a massive Factor File fan, Patrick. I like every season I sort of latch on to a nice novice chaser, and he's mine for this season. Can you tell me anything that could put me off him, essentially? Because I feel like my heart is leading here over my head, or is he as good as I hope he is?
No, I think you've got good taste, Vanessa. Look, he's an armchair ride. What makes him so good is that he's sensible. He settles. He's just efficient. He jumps from A to B. He's got a high cruising speed, but he has a turn of foot. You saw to look at him, you wouldn't have thought he was a champ bumper horse, but he was beaten by a flatbred horse in that. And yeah, I love him as well. I adore the horse, and I'm really hoping that he can confirm his promise here, and that we can get him to the Gold Cup next year.
Yeah, I do feel with him that, obviously Cheltenham, Brown Advisory would be wonderful, but I very much am looking forward to him in 12 months' time and beyond. I just think that frame, everything about him, I could bang on about him, but I'm not going to. Let's move on to Gaelic Warrior. Now, if we're talking about performances that I can't get out of my head, his early season performances blew so many of us away. His first 2 runs of the season, and then obviously the disappointment when we last saw him, and now everyone making these excuses for him with his atmosphere and his behaviour before the race. Like, where are we at with Gaelic Warrior? And is that pre-race worry a genuine worry, or is that just a stick we're using to beat him because of what he did at Leopardstown?
No, I think with Leopardstown, nothing physical came of it, which is a good and a bad thing. You'd love to have a more solid reason to why he ran so poorly. It was fascinating watching the split screen with the Leopardstown Chase. The speed they went, the two horse race were 20 lengths or more clear of the 25-runner handicap Chase at halfway, which was extraordinary. A wise man once said to me, you should forgive every horse one bad run. So, I would definitely forgive him that. Regards pre-race things, last year, he's always had that. Last year, I rode him the Neptune, and he was coming down to shoot. He shook his earplugs out and bolted with me. Nearly ran over one of Nigel Christen-Davis's lasses, and still ran a really good race. So we had to take the earplugs out of him down at the start. So he's always been a bit like that. Now, I didn't see him in Leopardstown. Some people are saying it was worse than normal. Maybe that was the case. But for me, the bigger worry is he's definitely better going right-handed, Yeah. So the horse has huge ability, but he is not at his best going left-handed. Now, maybe he's still nearly been good enough to win twice in Cheltenham, but that's the major concern for me, more so than the Leopardstown run.
Is a concern indeed. Okay, we move on. Embassy Gardens in the National Hunt Chase, Patrick. This horse has been sort of touted very early on as your ride in this race, and I think he's been described by Willie as kind of the perfect National Hunt Chase horse. What does that mean? Why does he fit the bills so dramatically, and why was he the standout so early? I haven't really sort of got a grasp on him.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I'd maybe go that far, but he's a big, wide, solid horse, usually very settled. He got very worked up in the Albert Barton start last year, but that's a funny kind of start. It's on a bend, it's a big field, it's downhill to the first, and everyone is rushing forward to squeeze in to jump the first in a positive position. The National Hunt Chase started much different. Since they brought in the new rules in about 2018, it's a much smaller field for a horse to qualify. You can take your time. I think he'll settle well. Having a horse that settles is such a huge advantage over that extended trip, obviously. Ideally, I'd love him to have a bit more experience. He's gone around essentially in 2 very small novice races. But again, since the rules changed, the race has smaller fields, so the lack of experience is less of a disadvantage. you know, his form, he has bits of very good form, but, you know, I think Corbett's Cross has much stronger form on the table. So it's for our fella to step up. I'm not sure the prices are completely right for what our fella has actually achieved.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that is probably partly to do with the comments after his latest run. That interview Willie did seemed to capture a few people's attention for the National Hunt Chase. So maybe you're right, maybe there's a bit of value elsewhere. But anyway, let's keep this show rolling. I forgot to mention when we were talking about the open horses, of course, El Fabiolo. Talking about horses that are just doing everything right, bless him. He really does do so much right. And again, if people are picking holes in him, it's probably in his jumping. But he never looks like falling, in fairness to him, even when he does make those little mistakes, Patrick.
Yeah, look, the horse, he's a beast. He's just powerful. He's keen. He likes to get on with it. He has his own way of jumping at times, but he seems to know where he's putting his feet. And look, a bit like you were saying about Constitution Hill, if the horse turns up in his A game, he should win.
Okay, we'll just keep it simple with him. Like it. We are getting to the end. Obviously, it'd be completely remiss of me not to ask you who you're going to ride in the bumper, Patrick. I have no idea. You can tell me if you like.
There's about 4 or 5 at the moment. I won't be riding any of the fillies anyway. I can't get away from them. But look, Jasmine DeVoe is obviously the most visually impressive. I think Cantico will probably do the best work. You ought to know technically has the best form, having been seconds in the Grade 2. And Argento Boy is he's a brother to Briar Hill. He's not flashy at home, neither is Briar Hill. He won at 20-1. He's the dark horse that just could come alive at the Cheltenham Festival. But look, I'll be waiting to see what works best next week, and then I can choose the wrong one.
Okay, all right. Right, look, I think we're pretty much done with you. I don't want to keep you too long, and I'm so aware you'll be talking about these horses till the cows come home in the next 2 weeks or so. Final question I have for you, Patrick, is what would you like to see at the Cheltenham Festival yourself? I don't mean whether it's like a winner. Obviously, a winner for yourself would be great, but I don't necessarily even mean a Willie horse winning. Just what would you like from the Cheltenham Festival itself? What's your one festival wish, if I could grant that for you?
Well, look, I suppose mostly I'd love to see the 21 Club return, but that's probably not going to happen. So what I most like to see this year at the Cheltenham Festival is Gallop and the Champs confirm that he is the sports superstar and regain his Gold Cup crown. It won't be easy, but that would be fantastic if it could happen.
Wonderful. Well, look, Patrick, if I could grant you that wish, you know that I would. But for the time being, thank you so much for your time. That was very insightful indeed. Good luck with the build-up to the Cheltenham Festival, and we will see you there.
There you go.
Right, so I think it's safe to say there were some interesting snippets there from Patrick, and one of them, boys, as we move on to the Mares' Hurdle, will be that there's not really any chance of Lossiemouth switching to a champion hurdle if Constitution Hill doesn't show up, judging by their thought process and what we've seen of her. As a result, she's going to be a very short price favourite, Robbie, for the Mares' Hurdle. She is a short price favourite. Does anything beat her?
No.
Okay.
On a performance in Cheltenham back in December, she wins. And there's no way Willie Mullins is going to pull a 4-7 shot out of a race to run as a 7-1 shot. So she runs here, she'll win. Henry runs 3 nice mares, and then I think Hispanic Moon was very impressive in Punchestown last week. Would have a great each way chance at 16-1.
Oh, nice, healthy each way bet. Okay, yeah. Take that. Who would you like to throw into the mix, Jamie?
I agree with Poppy. I think Henry has the 3 fillies, or the 3 mares.
Fancy Lady and Tell Me Something Girl.
Yeah, Tell Me Something Girl. Magical Zoe?
She'll go for the county, I'd say.
Okay. Tell Me Something Girl. She was going quite well 2 years ago when she fell, and then she fell at the first or second in entry last year. If she came back to any bit of form, she might just be one to run into a place.
Okay, someone to bounce back then. Away from Lossiemouth, Richard, quick word on the Mares' Hurdle from you. Anything for you? No,
what I took out of Patrick's interview is that the age profile of this particular panel that probably had to know was the 21 Club actually closed and where does everybody go now. So if anyone knows where you go in Cheltenham, if you maybe send him a text or something, invite him along that he's not left lonely.
Absolutely.
He's got a bit left out. He's there knocking on the 21 Club door and it's been shut 2 years. Terrific. Terrific. He did mention at the top of the show that it was 7 years ago that he won the Gold Cup, of course. So we'll forgive him that. Guys, let's move on. Let's move on at pace. Day 2, should we kick off with, of course, the Ballymore? And given what everyone's just said, if Ballyburn tips up here, clearly you boys on the left here are very much going to expect him to win this race. But behind him in the market, you do have the likes of Handstands, for example, over here. I mean, we're talking about all these Irish horses, but the Brits will get their hands on a winner or so. You know, a horse like him might have an each-way shout in here for the Ben Pauling operation. Away from Ballyburn, because we've spoken plenty about him, I'll start again with you, Robbie. Who else do you think has a chance in the mid-div race?
I think if Ballyburn goes supreme, whatever Willie runs here will go off favourite in Atlantique. The vibes I'm getting is that Reid and Tommy Wrong will go for the Albert Bartlett, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mystical Power came here instead of going for the Supreme to take on Ballyburn and Tully Hill.
And of course Jericho in there as well.
And Jericho for JP as well as in the Supreme. So there's every possibility Mystical Power could step up and trip here from his winning the Moscow Flyer, and will be a big danger. So I think whatever Willie runs will go off favourite. I thought Il Atlantique ran very, very well in the Lawlers and Nace. He made most of the running, and he just got collared late on by a horse that was dropped in and probably outstayed him. So I think Il Atlantique is probably the selection pick of Willie's here. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, I think people have judged Il Atlantique pretty harshly for that Nace defeat. You know, who's sort of obviously went off favourite for that race, was well fancied, and, you know, gets beat by a stablemate. People go, oh, like, they're just quick to go off horses, aren't they? Yeah,
like he's done not much wrong now, to be honest. He travelled, he jumped well. I do think that Darrell Jacob gave Reading Tommy Wrong. I thought he gave him a really, really good ride. I thought he gave him a brilliant ride, and just nabbed the other horse. So will they change tack on Il Antique? I'd say if they drop him in a small bit, he probably is the best horse in this race.
Yeah. Okay, well, he's a slightly bigger price because, of course, until the cards are shuffled and we know where these horses are going, Richard, it's kind of hard to have too strong an opinion, but at least with Il Antique, we are pretty confident this is going to be his spot.
Yeah, and I'd like your angle too on Handstands. Paddy Turley produced him, Declan Lavery rode him. He looked impressive from day one. He was named Handstands. They thought he was going to follow that sort of route throughout his career. Captain Teague was only beaten a couple of lengths in the bumper last year. Don't know if he goes here or where, but you're looking in around that 20-1 bracket to try and find something, because we're a little bit light. We're not certain. There's not an obvious standout in it. So when you move to 20-1, you see Handstands, Django Bay, Captain Teague, maybe around 20-1. There's something there.
I think Captain Teague is going for the Albert Bartlett.
He may well, and Reid and Tommy Wrong as well. But if one of them pivots here, that's where I'd be looking.
And of course, ground, as Robbie, you touched upon earlier, you know, that'll make people's choices harder or easier nearer the time. So there is something to bear in mind. Let's move on to the Brown Advisory. Cannot wait for this, because of course this is fact to file time. Very excited, as I've already mentioned to Patrick. Robbie, I'm going to start with you. Am I wrong to be so overexcited about fact to file?
No, definitely not. I'm delighted he's running this race. I think Willie Mullins said during the week that this was the race he was going for. Everyone was happy to him for this race. He ticks all the boxes. It's the Florida Pearl route, going straight from bumpers into chases. He's a fine, big, scopy horse. You could say he won a two-router race in Leopardstown and he beat Gaelic Warrior, who didn't turn up, but the speed they were travelling going down the back straight, the way he was jumping, his stamina's going to be no issue. Stay Away Faye ran a grand race in open company the last day against Capodanno and the Real Whacker, but I think Factify would eat Capodanno and the Real Whacker, so I think he'd be very, very hard to beat. I do think Monty Starr will run a big race here for Henry and the Maloney's. He's a gorgeous big horse. Was always going to be better chased than he was a hurdler, and he put up an exhibition of jumping and punches on the last day when he won. He's come straight from New Year's Eve to the festival. He'd be good fresh, and I think he'd run a big race. And a good to soft ground will suit him okay if that's what we get, or would you want it a bit softer? He just got beaten he won in Clonmel last year on atrocious ground, so ground won't be an issue to him either way, I don't think. Okay, nice. Richard, are we crabbing fact to file because he was in a match race and Gaelic Warrior didn't show up, or are we applauding that performance?
You applaud him, but you've got to trust your eye, because Gaelic Warrior didn't show up, so we don't know to what level he didn't show up. He just wasn't at the races at all. So you're basing your confidence in Factifile on your eye and on the fact that his price is now too short. So do you think he'll win the race? Yes, definitely. He's a credit to Donncha Doyle, who has Brave Man's Game, Gentleman's Game, Factifile. He just keeps producing not just good-looking, strong sales horses. They always sell well, but now they're going on and they're delivering as well. So good luck to him. He could have a great week. But if you had to have a bet in the race, he's too short of the price, and you'd probably lean to Stay Away Faye.
And is that the way you're leaning, Jamie?
Yep, Stay Away Faye. I thought it was a really, really good run in Cheltenham the last day. Like, open company. He jumped like an absolute handicapper. He was brilliant. He was really, really good for a novice. He only had 2 kind of runs around country tracks in England before that. He had to make the run and do his own donkey work, but when you step up to that level and he's jumping, I just thought it was magic. And he stayed galloping to the line. He's only beaten about 3 lengths. Previous Cheltenham winner last year. Stays. He's the one for me.
Yeah, I mean, that run we're seeing him in action here, but the run at Cheltenham in the open company, as you boys have referenced, he does have that. What I'm worried about as a Factifile fan is he has that bit of extra experience and in the hustle and bustle of a sort of more fast-paced race. And from your point of view as a jockey, Jamie, that is going to stand him in a touch better stead than the classy Factifile. Yeah,
look at Factifile is no doubt he's a good horse. But I just the experience that Stay Away Faye has. Matty Flynn had him as a pointer. He's just an extremely good horse. He stays very, very well, and I really, really like him. I really like him. Solid view then. We like that. Let's move on. Champion Chase. This discussion might be relatively short and sweet. Richard, I'm going to start with you here because, of course, El Fabiolo has done so little wrong except the odd mistake in his races, jumping-wise. But other than that, he's a winning machine. And as Patrick, in that interview we did earlier, summarised, we could keep this pretty simple. El Fabiolo wins the Champion Chase, doesn't he?
Yeah, we've 2 Derby Sale graduates in there. Fernie Hollow came back to form the other day. It's probably a bit quick for him to come back. John Bond's mistake the last day just means that race is, you can't take a line through it. He has beaten him before. I wouldn't just put a line through John Bond, but if I was having a bet in this race, I'd back Edward Stone at nearly 10-1.
Oh, would you?
I just think he's going to make the running. He's going to get it probably his own way. And I wasn't hugely blown away by El Fabiolo at Cork. He was good the last day, but yeah, I'd try something different. It's too obvious. If we keep backing favourites, we're going to lose somewhere. You got to look outside the box.
Hey, look, that's what we're here for. And Robbie, I mean, Edward Stone, when we last saw him at Newbury, I mean, those change in tactics, and maybe he stole it from the front, but he was lethal, wasn't he?
Oh, he was brilliant. He's always been a very, very good jumper.
Yeah.
Very slick. I know he's fallen once, but in general, he's a very, very good slick jumper, real 2-miler. And them changing tactics will help Edward Stone, but they'll also help El Fabiolo.
And also, I want your insight from a jockey's point of view, because of course they caught everyone on the hop a little bit with those tactics when they first did it, when we last saw him. But that won't be the same at Cheltenham. People will know that the other jocks will know what's going to happen now. They don't have the element of surprise.
No, they don't. And at the same time, when Edward Stone won in Newbury the last day, he was leading Fernando Civil and Boot Hill. This time he's going to be leading John Bond and El Fabiolo. There's a slight difference in quality. So El Fabiolo, it'll suit him, I think. It mightn't just suit John Bond. His jumping, his form around Cheltenham is not good enough for me. I think he's better on a flatter track. Even his win at Tingle Creek wouldn't blow you away. So I think, El Fabiolo to take all the beating. And I agree with Richard that Edward Stone is probably his biggest danger, because I can't have John Bond around Cheltenham.
Jamie, can you have John Bond around Cheltenham given the lack of a rhythm he got into when we last saw him?
Oh, definitely. I can have him all day long, yeah. Yeah, he's a very, very good horse. I agree with Poppy. He's just jumping. He didn't get into a rhythm the last day. He grabbed at the second in Cheltenham the last day, and just after that he fell apart. Got it back halfway up the hill, and then to make the mistake at the third last, or was it the fourth last again round the bend. Just it was silly stuff. But I still maintain, I'd say if young Bowen, James Bowen, had his time back again, he would have waited longer and sat, and he still would have won.
I couldn't agree more.
I think he just rushed him up on the day, got a little bit too excited after he made the mistake, and if he had waited, John Bon would have won. They would have blamed the mistake, but he still would have won.
Yeah. But instead, what's happened is he's had a hard race to not win.
Yeah.
And a not ideal ride.
Yeah, exactly. But look, those things happen. I think Nicky will freshen him up fine, and I still think he's probably the horse to give El Fabiolo most to do.
And what I love about John Bon, I suppose, is his heart and his zest for it. You know, he doesn't get in a rhythm and he makes that mistake, and he's still trying.
Yeah, he's
got a heart.
Absolutely, like it was a fair mistake now.
Yeah.
And as well as that, when you add on top of that all the jumping errors, the half a length he was losing the rest of the round, like it was going to be a good performance. I think it was a hell of a performance to do what he did, the way he jumped. So if Nicky can get him back fresh and well, he has to have a life chance.
Were you going to jump in with something now?
Just we're talking about Nicky Henderson's horse at the moment. There's no trainer in England better at prepping a horse for Cheltenham. But of Nicky Henderson's last 9 runners, 6 have pulled up.
Yeah, I saw the extraordinary stat there. Yeah. And very worrying.
It is, yeah.
It'd be rare that you'd see something like that sort of bad stat. Look at Jamie laughing.
That's because Puppy's able to get it off the phone. He's able to get it. Jamie's an iPad.
Before Richard gets it in, because he's usually doing all the stats.
I have a big iPad. You're doing it off your phone. It's good going, Pup.
25% of his last.
Guys, let's wrap up day 2 with the bumper, of course. And I'm not even going to pretend to have a handle on this, but all 3 of you should. I genuinely believe that you're going to give us the winner of the bumper. I will start with you, Richard. Morgine is your near enough top of the market. Jasmine DeVoe up there. Jalon Duderis as well. There's You Ought to Know is single figure price. Plenty of names thrown to the mix. Patrick has no idea what he's riding yet. Doesn't even know what Willie's going to run, let's be honest. Do you?
I definitely have no idea what Willie's going to run. Look, I suppose Jamie mentioned earlier Firefox was a top lot on a Derby sale, and he's leading fancy for his race. We'll get to brighter days ahead later. But there's 2 top lots from the festival sale last year. Jalon Duderis and Romeo Coolio, both graduates of Donegal Doyles, both made a lot of money last year, and now they're back 12 months later with a real live near favourites chance in the bumper. And it's great to see. It's great for Donegal, it's great for our festival sale, and it's great to think they could be back as winners. I'm going to oppose them with This was the most impressive 4-year-old I ever saw win a 4-year-old maiden, Tishan. Matt O'Connor bought him in this ring as a foal. His bumper run alone, you couldn't. I hope Harry Cobden rode him to get experience in and amongst horses, because I think if he lets him flow in the champion bumper, I think he's an enormous talent. Right. So I'll just shade with our November graduate over our festival graduates, but I think it'll be a Tattersalls graduate.
Love that. What a company man. Are you that much of a company man, Robbie?
I'm the farm man.
Yeah.
I actually like Romeo Coolio.
Oh, okay.
He's a huge reputation. I know they were very excited in Cullentra to go to the racecourse with him.
Yeah.
And the form of his bumpers worked out very well. The horse he beat at Pat Fatty's Sporting Glory won a bumper in Fairyhouse last week. He beat a very nice horse at Henry's. So it wasn't on the day visually very impressive. The form was worked out. And I just think he's the kind of horse you'd love for a Cheltenham bumper. He's always laid back, just doing enough all the time. And I think there's huge improvement to come from this horse.
To cost 420,000 was he at that festival sale? I mean, you see those sort of prices, you see him there. It goes without saying he's a horse for the future.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. But he just has everything. It's stamina in abundance. And he's a stayer. When he goes over jumps, he'll be a stayer.
And it sounds like the mind as well.
And he definitely has the mind. Well, it looks like he has the mind for it anyway. He's so laid back in everything he does. So, I think he's an each way chance in the race.
Okay, well, enough out of you two, because of course, if you've got Jamie Codd on the panel and you're talking about the champion bumper at Cheltenham, then we should have really come to him first here. Jamie, take it away. Come on, tell us, what wins the bumper?
Honest to God, there's been a lot of good horses, nice horses, but there's been no standout this year.
Yeah.
I kind of have to go with Richard. I think Tishan, and you're going on hype here, you're going on. He won like Ballyburn in Lochamoore, a point. Visually, it was the most impressive 4-year-old that we have seen in a long, long time. He backed it up in Exeter, was it, in the bumper? The last day, visually it wasn't, I thought he was going to be wow. It wasn't wow, but he won. I'm going to side with him. I just think, going back to his point-to-point form, I think if he can just get that experience from Exeter, I think he's got a great chance. Like this race is just going to throw up something. Romeo Coolio form has worked out absolutely. You ought to know Willie's ran very, very well in Leopardstown in the winners, and Grade 2 bumper behind Emmett Mullins' horse, who doesn't run because he got hurt since.
That's a shame.
So he could be a one as well, but I just think Tishan could be something special.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there that there's kind of been no absolute wow performance, but that Jeroboam, whatever he's called, probably was the wow-ish performance really of the season.
Absolutely.
So it's obviously that's not his official name, but we'll get to that. It slipped my mind momentarily. Right, guys, let's move on to day 3 then. Day 3, please. Turner's Novices Chase to kick things off. Is this an opportunity for the UK to get a Grade 1 winner on the board here? We've got Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawning up near the top of the market. Of course, Gaelic Warrior, we've already heard from Patrick in regards to maybe the not such concerns pre-race antics, but definitely obviously the left-handed configuration of the track. Facile Vega, what sort of version of him is going to show up? Who knows? So this, fascinating. Iroko could be back in action. Corbett's Cross won't go, but those are just the top few in the market. Richard, let's start with you. It's a wide open one, this one.
It is. I'd be interested in Jamie's view on this, because a horse I'd love to see win at the festival is American Mike. American Mike was bought and sold by Michael and Ann Cullen of Whitehorse Stud. Michael has been well recently. If he's watching, we wish him well, but I think it'd be a lovely result if American Mike could win for him and for Ann, and he was a graduate of the Doyles as well. Jamie knows him better than I do, so discuss.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with you. It's kind of very, very open. You named out the horses that are probably not going, so like American Mike for me, I think Chasen has brought out a kind of a different level. I know he disappointed at Limerick at Christmas. I think Gordon is definitely treating him a bit different since Limerick at Christmas. He's doesn't seem to be doing much with him at home. He's trying to keep him as fresh, but he travelled and jumped really, really well, bar one down the back in Navan. Missed that a little bit, but I think on nicer ground, like he has course experience in the bumper. He was second behind Facile Vega. On his day, is a very, very good horse. The trip will be no problem. And for connections, as Richard said, Michael and Ann there, I would really, really, really love to see this horse win in Cheltenham.
Okay. So head and heart votes then for American Mike in here.
Yeah, look at if there's any man looking down now, I think this will be the result of the festival for me.
Oh, you see, we wouldn't know about these stories unless we had you guys on telling us about them. Sentimental out the way though, obviously. What actually wins the race?
With the lads, heart for me, definitely American Mike.
Oh.
But I would prefer to see a horse coming up in trip to a horse coming back in trip for a race like the Turners. It was over 3 mile in Navan when American Mike won. He beat Nick Rocket well. The horse I like is Facile Vega. Going up in trip, I think he's crying out for this trip.
Well, as did Patrick, for sure.
He travelled like a horse both days over 2 mile, like a horse that had a very high cruising speed but didn't quicken off it. Neither time did he pick up, he just stayed galloping. I think going up in trip to 2.5 mile, you'll see a huge improvement in Facile Vega. And
we know he's got all that quality as well. It will be so interesting if that step up in trip just releases the...
I was interested in chatting to David Casey on a panel the other night. He said that he thought Facile Vega didn't get what he needed this year, was just strongly run 2 mile races. And he's going to get a strongly run race over 2.5, which would be just ideal for him. He's a horse with a high cruising speed that just doesn't quicken.
That'll be a serious bounce back to form in a Grade 1 from what we've seen of him though. Intriguing. Let's move on to the Ryanair, one of the feature races on day 3, I should say. Jamie, I shall start with you here because this race is a lovely betting race. It's nice and open. You can make cases for plenty in here, but Banbridge has been the clear favourite since Allaho, of course, is out for the season. Envoy Allen next best at 4-1 to win again at Cheltenham. Stage Star in there at around about 9-2. Conflated won't go. Brave Man's Game won't go. Those sort of horses. Pictory won't go, and Capadano is going to go to Aintree, I believe, next. So really, it's about those top 3. Banbridge, I think he's a very healthy favourite in here. Good ground. He doesn't get beat, does he?
Yeah, he does. Envoy Allen.
Whee! Here we go.
Like, I think
Look at this for a comeback run. He beats Picdory in second this day here, right? Okay, Picdory maybe wasn't on his absolute A game, and the mistake at the last threw his chances completely out the window. But watch this, Banbridge already has him beat, so we don't have to worry about that. And then Picdory goes and romps home in a Grade 1 when we next see him. This form is red hot. He's bound to step up from this performance, fitness-wise. He's been off the track for a long time. He's going to get good ground because that's what Cheltenham will be by the Thursday, and he's going to win the Ryanair.
If I go over there and ask the question, and if you want to get on
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, that was my pundit head. Case made. Look, I've got two big views this festival. Back to foul Banbridge.
So do you fancy him? You think he can win? Do you give him a chance each way, or would you back him on the
strong
nose?
views.
I'm afraid to say what I think now. What do you think? Banbridge.
Sorry, am I intimidating? People tell me I'm intimidating.
What a show. Banbridge, hot take on wins. JJ's 11.
Yeah.
Between
ourselves, we think Envy will win, but we'll let you have it.
Go on.
Envy people want to knock this horse. I love this horse. I won a champion bumper on him. I just love this horse. I swear to God, he's the nicest horse that I've ever sat on.
He's the one.
Oh, he's a dream. Jerry Calam in down Ryle, that's fine, good form. And he goes back into a Ryanair, previous winner last year, beat Shishkin. Shishkin is going to be placed in a Gold Cup. Nothing wrong with that form. That form for me is rock solid, and he wins the Ryanair again.
Okay, I'll get back in my box now.
You rode Banbridge as well, didn't you?
No,
you didn't. Okay, so you're definitely on that.
I mean, it's funny what you say about how people are keen to crab Envy Allen. I think when he sort of disappointed punters that day, he was such a short price favourite in the Turners, was it? Yeah, and
he'd only changed hands.
No, I know, and he fell. Look, I know, but you know what I'm saying is punters and fans get disappointed, don't they, in a horse, and then they sort of have a bit of a black mark next to their name. Yeah. And I just feel that's what's happened with Envy Allen, despite the fact, Robbie, he's got a terrific record, all joking aside.
Oh, he's an exceptionally good racehorse.
Yeah.
His performance last year in the Ryanair was top class, and I think he'll win again. I think he'll take an awful lot of beating.
Is he as much of a gent as he's saying at home? Is he sort of that way? Do people know him as a particularly nice horse?
Oh, he is, but he was quirky.
He's not a gent, no.
He was quirky,
no.
Yeah.
Keith Donoghue used to ride him in Gardens, and he done an unbelievable. I rode him through his bumper year when I was in Gardens, and then Keith Donoghue took over then, and he done a fantastic. Oh no, he's not simple.
Oh, sorry, I thought right,
early,
yes.
But as regards a model to look at him,
he's a beauty.
It's just a beautiful horse, horse.
He is that, It's the opposite to Jamie.
Jamie can be tricky enough too.
So you're with Envy Allen.
You're very warm looking.
I do. I think
and the whole lot.
Banbridge is very, very ground dependent.
He is, agreed.
And he has to have a good ground. Envy Allen is also a much better horse on better ground as well. So if the ground turns up good on the day, that'll suit Envy Allen as well. So I think for me, Envy Allen is probably one of Henry's best chances of the week.
Wow.
I think he'll take a lot of beating.
And Rachel knows him now. I think she
does. She was brilliant on him last year, and was brilliant on him in Down Royal.
Yes.
And he just doesn't quite see out the 3 miles.
And okay, you've got me worried now. And final question to you is, obviously, I mean, it seems an obvious one, but you're very happy with him at home. Is he sparkling?
Yeah,
is he bouncing?
Davy Rowe tries him out most days, and everyone's very happy with him, and he goes there fresh as well. So Envy Allen's record, as Richard knows, when he's fresh, is very, very good.
Does Banbridge win, Vanessa?
Retract, cut. Is this live? Richard, you're going to make it the clean sweep, and everyone's going to be laughing at me, right?
Oh look, he's a 15 times winner. It was very good to, when pointers started making that sort of money and you hit 400,000, there's a sense of pressure. They have to deliver now. This is serious. And he absolutely delivered for us and for Jamie and for Gordon and for Cheveley Park and then for Henry. He's been so good for the industry beyond just the punter at the time. So yeah, you have a soft spot for him. He just kept coming. I remember your conference the night before the bumper. Sorry, the night after the bumper, when he'd won, we went back to the house and I said, God, I thought when Blue Star he got to you. And you were like, what? He was always going to pick up. How did you think for a second? But there was a moment watching it, we thought, oh, Jamie's caught here. And you couldn't believe that we had this perspective of him, that he'd just always pull out more. So, yeah, he's always been good to us, so we'll stick with him. But listen, we'll be thinking of you when Banbridge comes
when
up.
he leaves Banbridge 3 lengths behind up the hill, I'll be like, won't be welcome back on that tax show. Let's move on to the stayers then, the other feature race on day 3. And Robbie, it's only right that I start with you here because, of course, Pugh has been up at the top of the market for quite some time now. Haven't seen him for a very long time, but this, of course, has been his main target. We saw what he did in the race last year. He was probably unlucky, really. How is he coming into this, for starters?
He's in fantastic form, and it was always the plan this year to do something different. He'd been to the last 2 Cheltenham festivals off the back of a run after Christmas, and it didn't work. He'd always won first time out. So after he won the Hatton's Grace this year, he beat Imperial Pass. The decision was made literally in the parade ring that he was going straight to the stairs hurdle.
Well, we heard those dreaded words. He goes straight to the festival. And of course, for racing fans, you go, no, enough of the straight to the festival. But when you're connected to the horse, you do the right thing.
Yeah, well, you've got to do what's best for the horse. And he is a horse. And everybody involved with the horse wants this horse to win a stairs hurdle. He's a horse that's very close to my heart. I rode my last graded winner on him and had my last ride on the racecourse on him.
No
yeah, so I rode him 3 or 4 winners, so his horse has been very good to me, and I'd love to see him win a stairs hurdle.
And you clearly are confident that this fresh approach is the right one with him?
I think so. I think a lot of things went against him last year as well. Like, poor old Davy's head was fried coming to Thursday, and I think it wasn't his finest hour, and he got hampered. He missed the second last, he got hampered in running going to the last. A lot of things went against him. Now, in saying that, as Rich said earlier, good horses find a way to win, and he didn't find a way to win that day. But I think this year, going there fresh, he'll be a better horse.
Yeah, he's kind of the standout stayer that you can pick the least holes in, I think it's fair to say, Richard, because in behind, you've got likes of Crambo, a Grade 1 winner, but you kind of want to see him do it again. You know, he beat Paisley Park that day at Ascot. Then Noble Yates, who's this kind of total enigma, doing everything the wrong way around almost, but he obviously won at Cheltenham. So Gerhard in there, Flooring Pointer, a previous winner of the race, Paisley Park, for God's sakes, and then a horse like Home by the Lee at a big price. I know they've thought plenty of him for a race like this. So it is wide open in behind him. Do you have anyone else you'd like to throw into the mix away from Tupu?
Yeah, I was coming into it sort of Noble Yates, Paisley Park form, thinking there's my bit of value. But if you believe that not having a run, Davy wasn't as fine as our, and he was only beaten 3 parts of a length last time. Like if you think there's that improvement in him, yeah, like I wonder, had he found a half a length last time and won it, would you have come here and given him the other run because he'd won the race and everything had gone so well? But for the sake of that 3 parts of a length, he hasn't had a run. If that improves him, do you know what I love though? I love that Rob Kerr prepared to run the 2 of them against each other. There's this thing, you can't run 2 horses against each other at Cheltenham. Imagine the photograph that you guys would have if you're first and second with the 2 sets of colours in a Grade 1 championship race at Cheltenham. I think it'd be terrific.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. I did say to Brian that back before Christmas we were talking about, he had the horses over 2.5 to 3 miles. He said, we've too many horses in this division, we have to try and split them up some way. And I says, what'd be wrong with having a picture in the winner's enclosure of the 3 of them standing in the first, second and third?
Wouldn't it be incredible?
So he wants to split them up a bit as well, so that's why Bob Ollinger goes to Aintree. But
it's mad that you've kind of ended up with Irish Point, Tupu and Bob Ollinger all in that very close category together.
Yeah, and there are 3 very, very good hires. This is first world problems. It's fantastic to have. So it's great. But the only concern I would have would be, I'd be good for you, Vanessa, is if Banbridge wins the Ryanair,
it's rattling.
It's good ground, and that would be my biggest concern for Tupu.
Yeah, I mean that's a legit concern for sure. Yeah. Jamie, what's your view on the stairs?
Irish Point.
Oh,
yeah, I love him.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, really, really like him. I thought beating Asterior Phalange at Christmas 11 lengths.
That's veteran form.
Asterior Phalange was second in Punchestown last year, and I think Tupu might have been behind him. I think he's an improving horse. I just think there's more improvement in him than Tupu.
Yeah.
Tupu is a good horse, don't get me wrong. He's a good horse. I just really, really like Irish Point, and I think he will win the stairs. Okay. Few different names then in the mix for the stayers. Last race to cover on day 3. We're rattling through these. The Mare's Novice, brighter days ahead. Again, Robbie, I'm going to start with you here because she's had all the hype out of the Gordon Elliott yard. Lots of talk about her. I mean, like, I don't know Gordon Elliott. You guys obviously do.
It's not that often you hear the quotes that he said about brighter days ahead. Is it? Like, we're all reading into this too much, or does he really love her?
Mighty Potter was one.
Yeah.
Don Cossack was another. You probably remember. Is there anything else that he went to that level?
Envoyellen.
Whoa, it's a fair.
I mean, that is if he's throwing her into that sort of category of discussions. Like, is she a beauty for starters?
Well, look at her there.
She's stunning. Look at her. She is very, very good. Again, I was a bit surprised the last day that they ran her over 2.5. I don't think that's a problem down the line, but she's coming back now into a 2-mile race. I was very, very impressed with Jade DeGrugy in Fairyhouse.
And I wonder if the hype around this horse, but Brighter Days Ahead, is meaning that people are kind of forgetting about Jade DeGrugy a bit.
Down the line, I think this could be a better mare, Brighter Days Ahead, because I think when she goes jumping the fence, she could be exceptionally good on what she's done over hurdles. But just for this race, I think Jade DeGrugy is a big, big danger.
I can see that totally. Yeah, I think I'd be with you at the prices as well. I think Brighter Days Ahead's price has shortened because of the discussions and because of the quotes that have come out of these press days from Gordon. Is that fair to say, Jamie? Do you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like she hasn't done anything. Like, she's won every day. She hasn't been wow, and she probably hasn't beat a really decent mare yet, but. Yeah, I think the lads love her at home now. Gordon obviously loves her, and pedigree to die for. She probably has the best pedigree in the book at this moment in time. That pedigree is happening. There's every horse is relevant. Like, it's a huge pedigree, and it'll be a great result. I'd love to see it for the Bleens down in Galway. They produced her at the sale here, and
she looked immaculate there.
Do you remember when she came here? Everyone was going. Obviously, people realised they wouldn't be able to afford her, but everyone was going down to look at her. She was She was a model. You know,
really?
you had to see her. Even the staff were going down. Did you see her yet? Did you see her yet? She was. And John Blehan knew. He said, I mightn't have a store like this again. And she was rewarded for it. It was great to see.
Look, at as well as that, like, and I said it before with Firefox. You know, when sales need these big horses to perform. She's one of them. Firefox hopefully will be one of them. Envoyellen, you know.
Oh, she keeps the sale in the headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. They keep the dream alive for everyone, really. And I look at when Gordon speaks like that about a horse, you just have to sit back, listen, and I can't wait to see her in Cheltenham. I thought she jumped really, really well in Navan. She was very slick.
You know, the Mares Novice Hurdle is a race people will crab sometimes, but of course this race could turn out to be an absolute belter of a race with the clash between the two horses we've already mentioned. And then if we're talking about Jade DeGrugy's price, Richard, getting a little bit big off the back of the talk about Brighter Days Ahead, then what about Dysart Enos, who's going to go here unbeaten? She's done absolutely nothing wrong. She, you know, you can't crab her either, can you? No,
and a Harley Dunn graduate, he's doing a great job producing those horses as well. So, but just on those mares races, I think I said it last year, and I'd make no apologies for saying it again. Without the mares programme, without the bravery and the strategic thinking of the Cheltenham, whether it's the BHA and Cheltenham Racecourse coming together, they have changed the industry for mares. They have improved it for the better. We're seeing from the Apples Jades, the Honeysuckles, to the Lossiemouths, they're there because of these races.
So the brighter days ahead.
And the brighter days ahead. There are people who say, oh, well, if they weren't there, the mares wouldn't be there. We wouldn't have the opportunity to have seen Honeysuckle win a champion hurdle, etc. So to compliment Cheltenham, to the BHA, to everyone involved in that race programming, it made a wonderful moment last year in having Honeysuckle in her race, and we're going to see two cracking races this year. We'll see maybe the Brilliance of Lossiemouth and a competitive race here. We need them, and we're very, very grateful for them.
Okay. Let's move on then to day 4, please, and we will kick off with the Triumph Hurdle. Sir Gino really put his head above the parapet sort of mid-season as the standout in the UK, standout juvenile horse in the UK, and as a result he's been at the top of the market for the Triumph, obviously for the Henderson Yard for a good while now. And is it fair to say, Robbie, that there's probably not really been a standout juvenile here in Ireland as there has been with Sir Gino in the UK?
No, the Irish ones have been beating each other all season.
Yeah.
Sir Gino's performance in the trials day in Cheltenham was exceptionally good. Very, very impressive. He came with a huge reputation from France, and I think he's the one they all have to beat. He's the level they have to reach. the rest of them, of what's in behind him, Willie has the strongest bunch, obviously going to of the Irish, which he does for most races. But I like Masborough. His first run in Ireland in a Grade 1, he ran a bit keen, did a lot of things wrong and finished third behind Cargeese, not beaten all that far. On this track around the new course in Cheltenham, it's all about stamina as well. I think Sergino's run around it already, so it suits him. But I think both Masborough and Stormheart of Willie's could finish in front of Cargeese. I think they're both the best of Willie's two in this race.
Okay, and Cargeese got that great ride that day, didn't she as well? So, yeah, much of a muchness night, you say, from the Irish. Have you done a deep dive, Jamie Codd, into the Triumph Hurdle?
Yes, I have.
Just now, in the last 30 seconds?
Yeah. They're not a store, they're not a pointer. I don't really have an opinion.
If they're not a store, if they're not a pointer, it's a no from me.
That's it.
Okay. Is it a yes from you?
I'd be very similar to Jamie, except that there is an Order of St. George that was bought as a foal that came through here as part of the Andy and Jimmy Brown dispersal, Mighty Bandit. I'd love to see him run well. They were very sporting, the high flyer team, and weren't great tricks and Tessa in the way they bought him, and I wish them well with him. He's about 25 to 1 for
I'd say Mighty
Bandit.
I think Mighty Bandit has a big chance in the Boodles.
And he might go that way as
I
well,
think
but if this cuts up,
Boodles.
wherever he goes.
Boodles, hope God the Boodles is, as always. I mean, everywhere you go, I feel like I hear a Boodles tip, a Boodles good shout, good thing. We're going to do your handicap picks, by the way, at the end, so... You know, that's right, Jamie. Do a bit of prep for that.
I've just given mine there now.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I think you've just given mine there now.
Okay, we won't be doing handicap picks. The Albert Bartlett, guys, I can put my hands in the air and safely say this is a race I do not have a handle on, Richard. Reading Tommy Wrong, Dancing City, High Class Hero, Shanag Bob, Gidley Park was so good the other day at Cheltenham. Captain Tegan here, we've already mentioned him, obviously ran so well in the bumper last season. Yeah, the betting suggests it's wide open, and this race has me fairly scrambled, I'm afraid to say.
Yep, I'd agree.
Okay, there I am with all those punchy views for the Ryanair, and then I get to this and I'm like...
Nothing.
I've got nothing.
Yeah. I like Shanna Bob. Christian John O'Donovan had him as a pointer. He won a race in Ballymore that worked out really well. I've mentioned Captain Teague earlier if he goes this way. And I like Pat Doyle, always seems to pull a Cheltenham winner out of it. He's a great man to produce horses. And reading Tommy Wrong, I could have any and all of them, and that doesn't mention High Class Hero or Dancing City. I couldn't even start to get to the bottom of this. Well,
this is, or that was, I think, going to be Shanag Bob performance at Cheltenham, was it? But it's gone now, so we'll move on from that. Robbie, I'm saying that I don't have a handle on the Albert Bartlett. Do you, is my simple question.
I don't. The Albert Bartlett as a race often throws up big price winners.
Why is that? It's just the hurly-burly of it. It's kind of savage, isn't it?
It's a real stamina-sapping race. You know, they don't hang around as... You heard Patrick talking earlier on about the hustle and bustle at the start, the pace down over the first few fences. We often see horse dropped in this. I can't remember the horse's name, but Paul Carberry gave a Paul Carberry masterclass here one year, and one of Noel Mead's horses that was a Gigginstown horse that was dropped in, and he creeped his way through off a strong pace. So it's a race that suits a horse that's ridden to run well. I do think Captain Teague has a big chance in this race if he goes this way. He was third in the Champion Bumper last year.
Slightly forgotten horse, maybe.
He's definitely a forgotten horse, yeah. I think he's a chance. Reading Tommy Wrong, who we mentioned, I think his preference is to come here rather than go to Barring Bingham, and I think he'll probably go off favourite if he comes here. But the other horse I like is Lecky Watson. I think stepping up to 3 Mile, he's 12 to 1 shot. I'd give him a big each-way chance. He was second with Slade Steele over 2.5 in Navan, third in that Grade 1 that Reading Tommy Wrong won in Nace. So I think Lecky Watson for me could be a big player here.
And that is him there, selling for 60,000 to that man Harold Kirk. Who hasn't spoken about the Albert Bartlett? Just Jamie.
Oh yeah.
Jamie looks. No, Jamie's still struggling around for his handicap shout over there.
I'm still getting over the Triumph talk.
Stores and pointers here now. You should be at your element now.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. Hang on a minute.
I'm really strong here, folks.
Yeah.
It's my time to shine.
Well played, that man. Yeah.
I love Shanna Bob.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just think he's got the profile for this race. Stays well. He'll be fresh. He hasn't run since December.
Here we go. We get to see him now. This is it.
Yeah, he's unbeaten. He's
a raw individual in the way he goes, though, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But he's obviously got a huge engine, and you know, second run over hurdles to win a Grade 2 around Cheltenham. His course experience. I like this horse. Captain Teague is the other one. He'll be stepped up to 3 mile. He hasn't run beyond 2.3, I think 2.5. If he gets the trip, he's definitely classy enough. But I just think Shanna Bob could be the one here.
Yeah, I mean, you get the impression when you're watching this back, and I thought it at the time as well, that he's almost not putting it all in, and I don't mean that in a negative way, as in, I don't mean that because he's being difficult, I just mean that he's learning on the job. Do you see what I mean?
I just think that he could be, being a maler, he will stay, and you know, he's coming in fresh and well. If he's in good order, he's the one for me.
Okay, let's move on then to the big race, the Gold Cup, of course. Galopin Des Champs is the market leader in here, obviously. Won the race last year off the back of the 2 Leopardstown wins, one at Christmas, one at the Dublin Racing Festival, both of them pretty impressive. Taking on Fast or Slow, who of course tried to put it up to him, Robbie, when we last saw him at Leopardstown and didn't manage it. Shishkin, the enigma that is Shishkin, Jerry Kalam, Lohan Press and Brave Man's Game and Gentleman's Game, plus Hewick, maybe not. Oh no, Corrick Rambler does run, in fairness, as his prep for the National. I mean, those are your top 9 in there. What a race this is going to be. I'm so looking forward to it, even though we've got a standout, and you could just say it's just simple, Galopin Des Champs wins. But these races are never quite that simple, and I think those horses in behind shouldn't be underestimated.
Oh, definitely not. They're all very, very good horses, and nothing's ever simple in the Gold Cup, as was seen last year when Galopin Des Champs. So much went wrong for Paul Townend on the first circuit last year. He missed the start slightly, he didn't jump the first few fences well. Also, he then finds himself a lot further back than he wants to be. He has to play his cards the way he's dealt them at that stage, and he played them very, very well. They went a strong gallop, and he was able to creep his way through, and good horses, when things don't go their way, they come through and win. So if he turns up like he did in Leopardstown at Christmas, he wins, and that's it.
I want to ask you about the new tactics with him, obviously riding him in that more positive fashion versus the sort of hold-up position we saw him in 12 months ago. He's clearly a slightly different ride for Paul now. Do you think a better ride for a Gold Cup, if you see what I mean?
Oh, definitely, yeah. You have to relax in a Gold Cup. If you don't relax in a Gold Cup, you have no chance. And when he was a novice chaser, when he won in Cheltenham, he was a front-running, exuberant, explosive jumper. They thought then he was a Gold Cup horse, but the one thing he had to do to win a Gold Cup was settle. So they dropped him in his races to teach him to settle, and he's actually gone the other way now. He's gone more relaxed. After 2 runs, when he was beaten in the John Durkan, or last year in Punchestown, then in the John Durkan, straight away Willie says we need to change tactics, and Paul said we need to change tactics, book him out in at Christmas, and he was breathtaking.
Away and
that
gone,
was like, I was stood down the back straight that day, and when they came past me, going down to the last circuit, they were rattling. They were going a proper gallop.
Well, I said it to Patrick in that interview. It's like, it's rare when you're on a racetrack. Not rare, but it's only occasionally when you're on a racetrack and you see a performance that really in the moment makes you go, wow. Often you watch a race back and you think, wow, that was more impressive than I realised. But I'm stood there at Leopardstown, and from the last to the line, the speed he went past me, I was that side. Yeah. I mean, it was really like, wow, that is cool.
Yeah, it was unbelievable performance at Christmas, and then again when he beat Jerry Kalam, and then again at the Dublin Racing Festival. I don't think he was at his brilliant best, because I think Paul rode a very clever race on him. He went a lot slower. He didn't let him run and jump the way he did. I think he was trying to be as conservative as he could, because he knew Cheltenham was only 5 weeks away.
And he's kind of shown off at Christmas. He doesn't need to do that twice in the season.
Yeah, it was actually, I was a bit surprised that after the performance at Christmas that Willie ran him back again in the Dublin Racing Festival, but the Dublin Racing Festival is what Willie likes to win at, so he wanted to go there with Galopin. But it's not all about him. Shishkin is a very, very good horse on his day. He was going to win the King George, and he came down second last. He stumbled 2 strides after. It was just one of those very unfortunate things. He made a horrendous mistake at the third last in the Ryanair last year and flew home. If he hadn't made that mistake, he would have really put it up 10 by Allen. Jerry Kalam is a very, very good horse as well. Needs to jump as well as he can. Nothing can go wrong for him in the Gold Cup. Everything has to go his way to lay it down to Galloping the Champ and Shishkin. And Brave Man's Game, who was beaten by Gentleman's Game in the Charlie Hall. I think Gentleman's Game lacks experience, but I think he's a good horse. He's an out-and-out stayer, and I think at 25 to 1 he's got a good each way chance in the race.
Trained by a genius.
Trained by a man who knows how to win a Gold Cup, so
Yeah.
Mouse will have left no stone unturned. I think if he gets there healthy and well, he'll have a big each way chance.
Who are you throwing into the mix then, Jamie? Come on.
I love seeing good horses, and Galloping the Champ is obviously like he's a superstar. I'm just not sure what way they're going to ride him this year. I think last year it fell Paul's way that he had to ride him like that, and then he came through and he was impressive. I have a funny feeling Fast or Slow could turn him over in the Gold Cup.
Really?
Yeah. He's 4.5 lengths behind him in Leopardstown. I know Galloping the Champ's won well. I just make a case for him because he has that handicap experience from Cheltenham last year, turned over by Corrick Rambler, 23 or 5 runners around Cheltenham, so the hustle and bustle is not going to annoy that horse. He can actually be the horse this year to let everything in a Gold Cup happen and then possibly be the one to pick up the pieces.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure. I'm just going to be very interested to see what way Paul is going to play it in the Gold Cup this year. Really, really am. Puppy thinks he'll book out. He's going to be an easy ride. I'm not so sure.
Do you know what? Talking about it gets me genuine. If you can't get excited about a race like this, we're clearly in the wrong game, obviously. But it's just fabulous, isn't it? Having that horse at the top who's got all this star and sort of swagger about him. And then these horses in behind that you can legit make cases for right up to a Corrick Rambler running into a place. You're not mad to say that.
No, and like Martin Brazel, to me, he's a bit of a genius. He's so good. Gives horses time, lets them progress. And as he's done with this horse, and now he's in the big time, it just wouldn't surprise me if he wins the Gold Cup.
What I also love about Fast or Slow is his pinpoint accurate jumping.
Touch wood.
Touch wood, yeah. Big wood touch there. Why are you huffing and puffing?
No, absolutely. He's slick. He's very slick. I just look at Galloping the Champ at Christmas was off the scale. We know that. But if for any reason he didn't run, it's still a vintage Gold Cup. The depth right back.
And no one's even mentioned the Hewitt. King George winner.
Yeah, well, Arkle will give him a mention. I'm a Shishkin fan, always have been a Shishkin fan. I love him. We've plenty of Derbyshire graduates here, Shishkin and Jerry Kalam and Brave Man's Game. But yeah, I suppose the only thing you have to say about Galloping the Champ is he's so good. How has he managed to get beaten those times that he did? So there's clearly an underperformance in him. Maybe he's just going right-handed, maybe it's Punchestown, but there is that run in him because he's so far superior. How does he manage to get beaten? And he does. So there's an army of horses here capable of beating him. So if you're a punter, you've got a chance one. I'll be on Shishkin at 7 to 1.
Okay. Goodness. Can't wait for it to all unfold.
Now you said it.
Yeah. That's been a rattle through, of course, the 4 days. But before we let you lads go home, shall we do handicap selections or anything else to mention, actually? Questions being told by the audience, our lively audience, that we've that we've got some questions.
Oh, number one.
Oh, yes, nicely done by a mysterious tweeter, I see. What's Jamie's Lebake for this year's festival? Of course.
HLJM.
Who could that be?
I can't. MH. I can't imagine who it could be. But anyway, 100 to 1 shot there, Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie Cog, come on. You've been dining out on that Lebake tip for quite some years now, haven't you?
Yeah, but that's it. Like how many times are you ever going to get another Lebake? You're not going to get
Hey,
it.
look, whilst we're here, I once went through the card at Dundalk and I've been dining out on it. That was 12 years ago.
Yes.
But you don't keep going on about it the way he keeps going about Lebake.
No,
You should be tipping up Shishkin, so he refused to race as well.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. An angle in.
No, there's no Lebake. Like you're not going to have that opportunity again, so there is no Lebake.
Okay,
Yeah,
no
you have
Lebake.
to- No.
Whilst we wait for our next question to come up, why don't you kick off then, Jamie, whilst you're on a roll, with a handicap selection?
No, Vanessa.
I asked
Vanessa, just go to Puppy.
Jamie,
or Richard
come on now, Jamie.
and
You can't be like
just
that.
come back to me.
you. Okay, I'll come back to you.
Thanks.
Puppy, we will start with you then in terms of maybe a handicap selection, which you've already given in fairness in the Boodles, or just another horse that you'd like to mention that might go well at the festival? I know there's lots of races we haven't got stuck into. Is there anything else that you're really looking forward to seeing run from your point of view in terms of your many different roles?
With that Indo.
Oh,
Cross-country
in the cross-country?
chase. Yeah, I thought he ran a blinder in December.
Oh, he travelled so well, didn't he?
He travelled
loved it.
and he jumped like a dream for Rachel all the way. She came back in, she was smiling from ear to ear after finishing fourth, which wouldn't be Rachel. She'd usually be giving out after finishing fourth in the race, but she was so happy with him. He really enjoyed it, he loved it. And I think he was giving over a stone and a half to everything in the race that day, so he's off level weights. And I think he's never been out of the first two at the festival. And I think he'll maintain that record. I think he'll go very well in the cross country.
Would you have to do much schooling with him? Obviously, he took such a liking to it when we saw him in that race. But would you just go there knowing that he's going to be fine?
No, he's just an old dude. He's actually in the indoor school in Henry's yesterday, having a loose school, and he was going around like an old pro. He just does everything. He's just such a dude. So yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to him in the cross country chase.
Courtesy of our next question, we are biding Jamie some more time here. So, Robbie, this is another question for you. What does Robbie think is Robka's best chance of a winner at the festival?
I think Pugh.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be kind of mad to go against that, given his profile for that stayers.
Yeah, definitely.
Can't wait for it. Now we've done the talking about it, it really does, like, it just gets the blood flowing, doesn't it, Richard?
Doesn't it just?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks away.
Can't wait.
You're all season waiting for it, and then we get 4 days of.
And you know what? If
the answers.
Banbridge is at the bottom of the hill and
Do you
Envoy
fancy him?
Allen is at the top,
You should have said. I mean, just because you're asking the question, you shouldn't have felt afraid to
given her
chip in.
tips,
Yeah.
yeah.
If there's any other races you have a view on, you should really let us know.
No, you're here for
Just
that.
Banbridge.
Back to File as well, my 2 short price favourites.
Yeah, you're double,
I'll be more unoriginal near the time. Stay tuned.
Okay. Stay tuned.
What anything else you'd like to add into the handicap mix, or any other names to mention like Robbie's done?
Listen, Jamie doesn't have a bake. I actually do, as luck would have it. It's been a horse I've been following for a while.
Here we go.
Viewers may know. I saw him win back in November 22. That was in France. He's only beaten 10 or 12 lengths last year at the festival. He's got a lot of experience. Since then, he's been third, second. He's keeping a lovely handicap around the 120s. He has got entries. Hang on. The Wi-Fi is slow, so you're going to have to wait. He has got entries in the Wi-Fi. Oh no, he does. He's entries in the Carroll Cup, the County Hurdle, the Martin Pipe, wherever he goes. 33 to 120. It's not quite Lebec, admittedly. Bad. I think he's the one.
Bad does
Ben
not have the
Pauling
head.
is going to get a winner. That's my handicap bet. Wherever he goes.
If you brought him a psychologist the week before, you might have a chance.
See, that's where you'll go wrong.
The way he travelled at Ascot the other day and just down tools, he should have won that race. Lord knows what he hit and running.
Listen, I put a lot of effort into finding bad here now, so I really, I'd like you to respect the effort.
Sorry,
I put in.
I don't know why I'm having a go
Some
at
might
you.
say I put more effort than Jamie, who's still putting effort in. Have you found one yet?
Look at Jamie, flat out on
can't
that
hold this
iPad.
any longer.
Flat out on
We've
that
filled
iPad.
for the last 5 minutes for you to find one.
Come on, let's wrap up.
And now just hit.
Go on.
I actually was Googling Michael Jackson's bad. I was wondering, what is this man on about now? God almighty.
Do you have anything else for us, Jamie? Seriously?
No, I do, actually, I do. Mascada in the Grand Annual.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I know she's up in the weights from last year. I think she had a good run behind. You're going to pronounce this because I'm not great. What was that?
Allegor de Vassi.
Yes.
Nicely done.
Is that right today?
Behind El Fabiolo as well in Cork, and I think that the Grand Annual, the speed will suit her. She's owned by the Marigas. I think they've 3 horses going to Cheltenham this year.
Hopefully 3, yeah.
Like, it's great story.
Mascada, Lantry Lady and Hispanic Moon.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're big, huge supporters.
All 3 of each way chances, definitely.
Yeah, and they're huge supporters here in Tats with foals. They buy stores, they sell stores. They're brilliant people for the industry, and I think she's got a great chance again.
Okay, Mascada then in the Grand Annual for Jamie, and he took hours looking at those handicap weights that were released, of course, today to work out his handicap pick. Guys, I think we're done and dusted. I think that's it. No need to fist pump. It's been a great hour and a half or so. No, in all seriousness, Robbie, best of luck to you and your team that you're obviously connected to at the Cheltenham Festival. Same to you, really, Jamie. and you, Richard, with your connections to all the horses that have gone through this sales ring and beyond, of course. Here's to an excellent Cheltenham Festival. I personally cannot wait for it. To you guys out there who watched and who hopefully will watch over the coming days and weeks building up to the Cheltenham Festival, be lucky. Go well. That was our Cheltenham Festival preview show. Enjoy the 4 days.